What happens when a Hollywood legend completely loses it on live television? When a simple question turns into an all-out war between a beloved host and one of the biggest action stars of our time? It only took 41 seconds for Wesley Snipes to go from composed guest to absolutely furious, storming off the Good Morning America set in what's being called the most explosive exit in morning TV history. Before we break down every jaw-dropping moment of this insane confrontation, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the feuds they don't want you to see, and the moments that get buried by the industry. You won't want to miss what we've got coming next. Last night's Good Morning America started like any other morning show. The studio lights were bright, the audience was excited, and Michael Strahan sat across from Wesley Snipes with his trademark smile. Snipes was there to promote his latest project, dressed sharp in a black suit, looking every bit the movie star he's always been. The atmosphere seemed friendly enough at first. Strahan opened with some light conversation about Snipes' new action thriller, asking about the intense training regimen and the stunts he performed himself. Wesley responded with enthusiasm, talking about how he wanted to prove he could still do everything he did 20 years ago. He went into detail about the martial arts sequences, the wire work, and how he insisted on doing his own stunts despite the production team's concerns about insurance and safety. The audience clapped. Strahan nodded along, smiling and laughing at Wesley's stories about nearly breaking his ankle during one particularly difficult fight scene. "Man, you're fearless," Strahan said, shaking his head with what seemed like genuine admiration. "At your age, most action stars are letting the stunt doubles do all the heavy lifting, but you're out there throwing kicks like you're still in your 20s. Wesley grinned, clearly enjoying the praise. "Age is just a number, Michael. If you take care of your body, if you stay disciplined, there's no reason you can't keep performing at a high level. I've been training in martial arts since I was a kid. This isn't just acting for me. It's a lifestyle." The conversation continued smoothly for another few minutes. They talked about Wesley's co-stars, about the filming locations, about the director's vision for the project. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Strahan was doing his job, asking the right questions, giving Wesley plenty of space to promote his film. The audience was engaged, laughing when they were supposed to laugh, nodding when Wesley made serious points about the action genre and representation in Hollywood. But then something shifted. You could feel it in the air, that uncomfortable tension that comes right before everything falls apart. Strahan's expression changed slightly, like he was preparing to ask something he knew might not go over well. He glanced down at his notes, then back up at Wesley with a look that seemed almost apologetic, but not quite sincere enough. Strahan leaned forward with a curious look and said, "Wesley, I gotta ask you something that a lot of people have been wondering about. You've had some pretty public struggles over the years, some legal issues that kept you away from Hollywood for a while. Now that you're back, do you feel like you have to work twice as hard to prove yourself again?" The smile immediately disappeared from Wesley's face. His jaw tightened. He stared at Strahan for what felt like forever, the silence so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the fun celebrity interview they'd signed up for. You could see Wesley's hand gripping the armrest of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "Legal issues?" Wesley finally said, his voice low and controlled, but with an edge that made everyone nervous. "That's what you want to talk about? I come here to discuss my film, my art, my contribution to cinema, and you want to bring up old stuff that has nothing to do with why I'm sitting here?" Strahan tried to play it cool, flashing that TV host's smile, but there was something calculated about it now. "Hey man, I'm just asking what everyone wants to know. It's part of your story, right? Part of your journey back to the top. I think people respect someone who can overcome adversity and come back stronger." "My journey?" Wesley's voice got louder now, and you could see the anger building behind his eyes. His whole body language changed. Sitting forward in his seat, his shoulders tense. "You don't know anything about my journey, Michael. You sit here in your comfortable chair, asking questions someone else wrote for you, picking at old wounds for entertainment, and you think you understand what I've been through? You think you have any idea what it's like to rebuild your life from scratch? The studio got incredibly quiet. You could hear the buzz of the overhead lights, the shuffle of feet from nervous crew members. Camera operators glanced at each other nervously. The producers in the control room were probably losing their minds, trying to figure out how to salvage this disaster in the making. Some audience members had their hands over their mouths, shocked at the sudden turn the interview had taken. Strahan's expression changed too. The friendly demeanor started to crack, replaced by something more defensive. Look, Wesley, I'm doing my job here. This is a talk show. We talk about things. We have conversations about all aspects of a person's life and career. If you didn't want to discuss your past, maybe your people should have said something before you came on. Maybe we could have established some ground rules. My people? Wesley laughed. But there was no humor in it. It was harsh, bitter, the laugh of someone who felt betrayed. Oh, so now it's my fault that you decided to ambush me with this garbage? I've been nothing but professional since I walked in here. I showed up on time. I was courteous to your staff. I answered your questions about the movie. I played along with your little jokes about my age and my stunts. And this is how you repay that? By trying to embarrass me on national television? By digging up the worst period of my life when I came here in good faith? Nobody's trying to embarrass you, Strahan shot back. And now his voice had an edge too. The Mr. Nice Guy persona was slipping away fast. I asked you a legitimate question about your career and your comeback. It's something that's part of your public record. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's not on me, brother. That's something you need to deal with yourself. Don't call me brother, Wesley snapped, his eyes flashing with anger. We're not friends. We're not family. You want to know what makes me uncomfortable? Sitting here while you pretend to care about my work, when really you just want to dig up drama for ratings. That's what this is about, isn't it? You need that viral moment for the social media clips. You need something controversial so people will share it online and talk about it. Well, congratulations, Michael. You got it. The tension in the studio was absolutely insane now. Some audience members looked scared, genuinely worried about what might happen next. Others had their phones out, recording every second of this meltdown, knowing they were witnessing something that would blow up online. Strahan sat up straighter in his chair, and you could see he was getting genuinely angry now, his professional composure crumbling. You know what, Wesley? Strahan said, his voice rising, his own anger starting to match Wesley's. I've interviewed hundreds of people on this show. Movie stars, athletes, musicians, politicians, you name it. And most of them understand that when you come on a talk show, you're here to have a conversation. A real conversation. Not just some promotional fluff piece where we kiss your ass for 10 minutes and pretend like you're perfect. People want authenticity. They want honesty. Wesley stood up from his chair so fast it nearly tipped over backward, catching everyone off guard. His movement was so sudden that one of the security guards actually took a step forward, unsure if he needed to intervene. Kiss my ass? Is that what you think I wanted? I wanted respect, Michael. I wanted to talk about my craft, about the work I put into this film, about the blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating something meaningful, about the message we're trying to send with this movie. But instead, you want to play gotcha journalism like you're some kind of hard-hitting reporter for 60 minutes or something. Sit down, Wesley, Strahan said firmly, standing up himself now, using his full height to his advantage. Let's just take a breath here and don't tell me what to do. Wesley's voice echoed through the entire studio, bouncing off the walls. I've been in this business for over 30 years. I've worked with the best directors in the world, the best actors in the world, and I've earned my place in Hollywood. I've paid my dues 10 times over. I don't need some former football player turned morning show host lecturing me about how interviews work. You think you know journalism? You think you know how to have a meaningful conversation? That line hit hard. You could see Strahan's face change completely. The anger that had been simmering underneath suddenly came to the surface, and his professional mask completely fell away. Strahan stood up too, matching Wesley's energy, his massive frame towering in the studio. His voice dropped to a dangerous level. "Former football player? That's cute, man. Real cute. You want to take shots at my career now? You want to diminish everything I've accomplished? At least I don't have a prison record to explain away every time I try to make a comeback. At least when people Google my name, they don't find mugshots and tax evasion cases." The studio gasped. Multiple people in the audience audibly gasped. Producers were definitely screaming through Strahan's earpiece at this point, but he wasn't listening anymore. The confrontation had gone way past the point of no return. There was no walking this back. No amount of commercial breaks or apologies could fix what had just been said on live television. Wesley's face went red. Not just a little flushed, but genuinely red with rage. His hands were shaking, and for a moment, it looked like he might actually lunge at Strahan. The security guards positioned around the studio all moved closer, ready to step in if things turned physical. "You just crossed a line that you can't uncross, Michael. That's defamation. That's slander. And I promise you, you're going to regret saying that on live television. I promise you that. My lawyers are going to have a field day with this." "Oh, I'm shaking," Strahan said sarcastically, spreading his arms wide in a mocking gesture. "What are you going to do, Wesley? Sue me for asking questions about public record? About things you actually went to prison for? About facts that anyone can look up online? Please, go ahead and sue me. I'd love to see how that goes for you." "I served my time," Wesley shouted, his voice cracking with a mixture of emotion and fury. Spit flew from his mouth as he yelled, "I paid my debt to society. I did everything the judge ordered me to do, and I came back and rebuilt my career from scratch, from nothing, while people like you got everything handed to them on a silver platter. You think it's easy being where I am? You think it's easy to come back after the world tried to bury you? After everyone wrote you off as finished? Nobody's trying to bury you, man," Strahan shouted back, pointing an accusing finger at Wesley. "You're burying yourself right now with this ridiculous tantrum. This is exactly why people question whether you're really ready for the spotlight again. Because the moment someone asks you a tough question, the moment someone brings up something you don't want to talk about, you lose your damn mind. You act like a child throwing a fit in a grocery store." Wesley pointed his finger directly at Strahan, his hand trembling with barely controlled rage. "A tough question? You ambushed me with personal attacks disguised as journalism." "There's a difference between being a good interviewer and being a disrespectful piece of—" He caught himself before finishing the curse, clenching his jaw tight, but everyone knew exactly what he was about to say. The whole studio held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The tension was so thick, it was suffocating. Audience members were gripping their armrests, some with tears in their eyes from the stress of watching this meltdown. Strahan stepped out from behind his desk completely now, his massive frame fully visible, making himself look as intimidating as possible. "You need to check yourself, Wesley. You need to take a step back and calm down. This is my show, my house. And if you can't handle a simple conversation without getting violent and threatening people, without pointing fingers and making accusations, then maybe you should leave. Maybe you should just walk out that door right now." "Violent?" Wesley shouted incredulously, his arms spreading wide. "I haven't touched anyone. I'm standing here having a conversation. But you know what? You're absolutely right about one thing. I should leave. Because I'm not going to stand here and let you disrespect me for another second. I'm not going to be your punching bag so you can boost your ratings." The energy in the room was electric, dangerous. Crew members were frozen in place, not sure whether to intervene or stay back. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every single moment of this spectacular disaster. This was the kind of content that would be replayed for years, analyzed by every entertainment show and YouTube channel in existence. "Disrespect?" Strahan laughed, but it was harsh and mocking. You came on my show and started throwing insults the second I asked you a question you didn't like. You called me a former football player like that's an insult. You questioned my credentials. You said I got everything handed to me. Who's being disrespectful here, Wesley? Who's really being disrespectful? Wesley ripped off his microphone, the wire snapping as he yanked it from his shirt with such force that it made a loud popping sound through the speakers. Everyone in the audience jumped. He threw the mic onto Strahan's desk, with enough force to send some papers flying, to knock over a coffee mug that shattered on the floor. The crash echoed through the studio like a gunshot. "This interview is over," Wesley declared, his voice booming through the studio, carrying to every corner of the room. "And when my lawyers are done with you and this network, when they're done going through every word of this interview, you're going to wish you'd never brought me on this show. You're going to wish you'd shown me some basic human decency." Strahan crossed his arms, standing his ground, refusing to back down even an inch. "Go ahead and walk, Wesley. Show everyone watching at home that you're exactly what they think you are. Someone who can't handle the heat. Someone who runs away when things get uncomfortable. Go ahead, prove me right." "The heat?" Wesley laughed bitterly, the sound echoing off the walls. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair, roughly shoving his arms through the sleeves. "Brother, I've survived things you couldn't even imagine. I've been to hell and back in this industry while you were still learning how to read off a teleprompter, while you were still figuring out which camera to look at. Don't you ever question what I can handle. I've handled more pressure, more adversity, more real challenges than you'll face in your entire cushy life." He started walking toward the edge of the set, his footsteps heavy and purposeful, but then he stopped abruptly and turned back around, unable to let it go, unable to leave without getting the last word in. His face was still flushed red, his chest heaving with anger and adrenaline. "You know what the real problem is, Michael?" Wesley continued, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge of controlled fury. "People like you, sitting in judgment of people like me. You've never struggled a day in your life. You went from football straight to television. Everything's been easy for you. You've never had to fight for anything. You've never had to rebuild yourself from nothing. So you don't understand what it means to fight your way back from rock bottom. You don't understand what it takes to stand back up after the world has knocked you down repeatedly. That's where you're wrong," Strahan called after him, his voice rising to match Wesley's volume. "I fought for everything I have. I worked my ass off to get where I am. But the difference between you and me, when I face my demons, when I deal with my problems, I don't blame everyone else for asking about them. I own my stuff. I take responsibility." Wesley stopped in his tracks. For a second, it looked like he might charge back toward the desk, his whole body tensed up, his fists clenched at his sides. Security guards stationed around the studio stepped forward slightly, their hands moving to their belts, ready to intervene if things got physical. The tension was absolutely unbearable. Some audience members were crying now, overwhelmed by the intensity of what they were witnessing. But Wesley just shook his head slowly, his expression a mixture of disgust and disbelief. "You're not worth it, man. You're really not worth it. This whole show, this whole network, all of you are just parasites feeding off real talent. You don't create anything. You don't build anything. You just tear people down for entertainment. And I hope you're proud of yourself for this hit job. I really do. I hope when you go home tonight and look at yourself in the mirror, you feel good about what you did here today." "Hit job?" Strahan yelled back, his voice echoing through the studio. "This was supposed to be a friendly interview. You're the one who turned it into World War III because you can't handle a simple question about your past. All I did was ask you about your comeback. That's it, that's all I did. And you completely lost your mind." "Friendly?" Wesley's voice dripped with sarcasm, his face twisted in contempt. "Yeah, real friendly. Bringing up my lowest moments on national TV without any warning whatsoever. Blindsiding me with questions designed to make me look bad. That's some real friend behavior right there, Michael. Your mama must be so proud of the man you've become. Really proud of what you're doing with your platform. Leave my family out of this, Strahan warned, his voice dropping to a dangerous level, taking a step forward. You can say whatever you want about me, but you leave my family out of your mouth. Oh, now you want to draw boundaries? Wesley shot back, gesturing wildly with his hands. Now you want to talk about what's off limits? Now you want to establish some ground rules? How convenient. It's only okay when you're attacking me and my personal life, right? When you're digging into my past and throwing it in my face? But the second I mention your family, suddenly that's crossing a line? You see how hypocritical that is? One of the producers finally rushed onto the set, a woman in her 40s with a headset, trying to mediate the situation, holding her hands up between the two men. Guys, please, let's just take a break here. Let's calm down But Wesley put his hand up, cutting her off. Don't even bother. Save your breath. I know when I'm not wanted. I know when I've been set up. This whole thing was designed to make me look bad. And congratulations, mission accomplished. You got your viral moment. You got your controversial clip that's going to be all over social media. I hope it was worth destroying whatever credibility this show had left. I really hope those ratings were worth it. Strahan took another step forward, pointing at Wesley. Nobody set you up, Wesley. Nobody forced you to act this way. You did this to yourself. All you had to do was answer the question like an adult. Show a little humility. Maybe even use it as an opportunity to inspire people who are going through their own struggles. But instead, you threw a fit like a child who didn't get his way. Like a spoiled brat who can't handle any criticism. I'm done talking to you, Wesley said coldly. His anger now ice cold and controlled in a way that was somehow more frightening than when he was yelling. I'm done with this circus. I'm done with your fake concern and your manufactured drama. Tell your audience, tell your viewers, tell whoever you want that Wesley Snipes walked off the show because he refused to be disrespected by a host who thinks asking trashy tabloid questions makes him a real journalist. Tell them I had the self-respect to walk away from abuse. He turned on his heel and started walking toward the exit again, his movements deliberate and final. Stage managers scrambled to get out of his way, pressing themselves against the walls. Cameras followed his every move, catching every moment of the dramatic exit, every expression on his face, every angry gesture. The studio lights cast long shadows as he moved through the set. That's right. Walk away, Strahan called after him, clearly unable to let Wesley have the last word, his pride wounded, just like you always do when things get tough. That's the Wesley Snipes everyone knows. All ego, no accountability, can't take any criticism, can't handle any tough questions. Wesley stopped one final time at the very edge of the stage, right at the threshold between the bright studio lights and the darkness backstage. He was illuminated dramatically, like an actor in his final scene. He turned his head slightly, just enough so Strahan could see his profile, could hear him clearly. You'll regret this, Michael, Wesley said quietly, but every microphone in the studio still picked it up perfectly. His voice was calm now, almost eerily calm after all the yelling. Mark my words, you'll regret this. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday you're going to realize what you did here, what you destroyed, and you're going to have to live with that. And with that final ominous statement, Wesley Snipes stormed through the studio doors, pushing them open so hard they slammed against the walls with a thunderous bang. He disappeared into the backstage area, leaving behind a stunned audience, a furious host, and what will go down in television history as one of the most insane confrontations in morning television. The cameras caught Strahan standing there, his chest heaving, his jaw clenched, clearly trying to compose himself as the reality of what just happened began to sink in. His hands were shaking slightly, whether from anger or adrenaline. It was hard to tell. The studio fell into complete chaos. Audience members were talking loudly, their voices overlapping in confused and excited chatter. Some were filming on their phones, their screens glowing in the studio lights. Others looked genuinely shocked, and confused, like they couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. A few people were shaking their heads in disappointment. The atmosphere was electric, with tension and disbelief. Producers rushed onto the set from all directions surrounding Strahan, probably trying to figure out how to transition to commercial or salvage what was left of the show. Some were talking frantically into their headsets, no doubt getting screamed at by network executives who had just watched this disaster unfold in real time. But the damage was done. The interview that was supposed to be a simple promotional appearance for Wesley's new movie had instead created a scandal that nobody would forget anytime soon. Strahan tried to regain some semblance of control, smoothing down his shirt with shaking hands, adjusting his tie, taking several deep breaths. But you could see the anger and shock still written all over his face. His jaw was clenched so tight it looked painful. He looked directly at the main camera, his eyes blazing with barely contained emotion. "Well," he finally said, his voice strained and rough, clearly trying to maintain some professional composure, even though his hands were visibly shaking. "I guess we'll be right back after this break, if anyone needs us." But everyone watching knew that there was no coming back from what had just happened. No commercial break could erase what millions of viewers had just witnessed. The confrontation between Wesley Snipes and Michael Strahan would be replayed endlessly, analyzed and debated for weeks, maybe months to come. Social media was probably already exploding with clips and reactions, with hot takes and think pieces. Twitter was probably on fire. Instagram was probably flooded with screenshots. TikTok was probably already creating memes and reaction videos. And somewhere backstage, Wesley Snipes was probably calling his lawyers, his publicist, his agent, and anyone else who could help him deal with the fallout from this absolutely catastrophic appearance. Or maybe he was just sitting in his dressing room, trying to calm down, trying to process what had just happened, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his career, or if he'd stood up for himself in a way that was long overdue. The cameras finally cut away as producers scrambled desperately to fill the airtime with something, anything else, leaving viewers at home stunned and speechless by what they'd just witnessed. What started as a simple celebrity interview, as what should have been a straightforward promotional appearance, had devolved into an all-out war between two men with egos and careers and reputations hanging in the balance. And the whole world had watched it happen in real time, unable to look away from the train wreck unfolding before their eyes, unable to change the channel even if they wanted to. This was the moment that would define both of their reputations moving forward. The moment when a promotional appearance turned into a public relations nightmare of epic proportions. The moment when two men let their pride and anger get the better of them, creating a spectacle that nobody asked for but everyone would remember. The kind of moment that reminds us all that even the biggest stars are still human, capable of losing control when pushed too far, capable of saying things they might regret later, and that live television is the most dangerous stage of all, because there's no editing out the ugly truth when it explodes right in front of millions of viewers watching from their living rooms.